Good afternoon. Thanks again for joining me this week for our head class. So take a moment and find a comfortable either seated position or lying down on your back. Once again, you can sit in Virasana, or if you want to sit in cross-legged if that's more comfortable for you, either one is fine. I am most comfortable in Virasana for my hips. So just take a moment, find where that space is for you. And then once you're there, either take a soft gaze about 3 feet in front of you or go ahead and float your eyes shut. As always, just take a few moments to come into the body, taking the time to just allow yourself to release the day you've had up until this point. And letting go of any expectations of your practice and any attachment to what you have after this hour. So as we work on our breath, our mindfulness, it continues to be important to know that we obviously have a lot of chatter right now in our minds. So release the expectation that you can just shut that off. Once again, your mind's job is to think, just like your heart's job is to beat. But maybe instead just see if you can soften and allow that chatter to become just a little bit more of background noise for you. And to help that happen, just bring your attention to the sound of the breath. Allowing yourself to not be frustrated with yourself, that you feel like you can't just turn the mind off. Instead, allow yourself to just allow those expectations to release. Just continuing to come back to your breath, no matter how many times that has to happen. There's no set rule here of what your breath and your mindfulness is supposed to be. Just allowing yourself to sit with the breath, to find those spaces where maybe you do find a little silence. And instead, think about allowing the breath just to bring calmness, a little peace and quiet. And as always, continue to know that we all are experiencing that same chatter, that same over-information, the overload of all the news and friends and posts all coming at us. And then very slowly float your eyes open. So we're going to come into deer pose. So you may want a block or a blanket underneath you. So you're going to bring the right leg forward and the left leg is going to be turned in internal rotation behind you. So most likely you're going to be most comfortable with the feet closer into you. If you're a little bit more open in the hips, you can start to adjust the feet away from each other. However, you do want to try to keep that sits bone down, especially on that left hip. So as soon, I don't know if you can probably see, as soon as I move that left leg back, my sits bone came up. So I'm going to move that foot forward a little bit more. So once again, taking a block underneath you might give you a little bit more ease in it, especially if you have really tight hips. Okay, so for me, I'm gonna take my block back out from underneath me though, so I'm pretty comfortable. I have maybe a 1/4 inch between me and the floor, and that love sits both, and that's okay. The other thing I want you to think about is your knees and making sure that they're not so tight in that you're feeling too much discomfort on the knee. So maybe you also can use a block to maybe prop that knee up, or maybe a blanket might be a little bit better. That block's a little high for me. You can kind of trick your block sometimes though by putting it on a edge like that, so it's not quite as high as this way. So I'm going to give you 2 different variations, well 3 actually. You can just stay seated into the hips here. If you want to take a little forward fold, you can. Or actually, if you want to take a rotation towards the knee that's been in front of you, if you want to get a little bit of movement in the spine, those are your 3 choices. So we're going to be here for 3 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and take a rotation for my version today. And once again, just that reminder of allowing yourself to feel ease in your yin pose. Once again, not about taking it so deep that you are uncomfortable, knowing where your edge is. Just taking nice, soft breaths. And no matter what version you've taken, whether you're just seated up tall, whether you're forward folding in deer pose, or if you're in a rotation, I want you to just think about the legs and the pelvis just dropping down into the earth. Just allow them to feel heavy. Just practice with the intent of allowing yourself to be still but comfortable. So I know sometimes these poses can be somewhat hard to be comfortable in, but once again, you don't want to take yourself to that point where you can't breathe, how you have other parts of your body clenching up. And as we've been in deer pose for about 2 minutes now, if you feel like you can yield a little bit more, maybe you can scooch the foot forward just a little bit, or that back leg back just a little bit. Once again, just making very subtle adjustments, not forcing any body part to go in any particular place. We have just about 10 more seconds here. And then very slowly bring the back leg forward, and we're just going to come into the other side. So bend the left leg in front of you, right leg is going to go back behind you. Good. Once again, your version can be either seated straight up this way, just allowing those hips to sink down. You can forward fold, or take a rotation to the leg that's in front of you. Once again, continue to use props underneath your hips if you need them. Or blankets, blocks and blankets are a good combination too. Once again, just just allow yourself to feel those hips just sinking down. Let gravity do its work. If you do happen to have a bolster at home, maybe even sitting up on a bolster might be helpful right now too. Just find that soft breath. You can either just have a soft gaze or allow your eyes to float shut. As in any other yoga practices, this is about your body and your time and what is calling to you. You have about a minute 15 left. Once again, as you've been here, if you can maybe move the front foot forward a little bit, maybe you can move the back leg back a little bit, feel free to maybe yield a little bit more into the pose. Once again, making sure that you're not pushing. Very slowly, bring your legs out in front of you. Good. We're going to come into frog pose. So, especially for frog pose, this might be where either a blanket or maybe pillows might come in handy. I want to give you a couple of modifications. If you use our blanket, I would fold it probably into thirds to make it as much kind of like a bolster as you can. You may or may not need this underneath you, but you're going to come onto your stomach. You're going to take the knees out to the sides. So especially if you have tighter hips, so just like kind of a little laid out froggy here. So if you have tighter hips, coming up onto that blanket or pillows is what's going to take some of that sensation out of the thighs as opposed to being all the way on the floor. Now, you notice that as soon as I take the blanket out, my feet are up, which is fine, but for some of you that might be a little bit too much sensation. So if it is, I would go ahead and put the blanket back underneath you instead. And I'm actually going to do that version today too. And also, when you raise yourself up, takes you out of maybe some knee compression too. So once you're here, you can lay all the way down, rest your forehead on the back of your hands, or if you have a block in front of you, rest your forehead on the block. Take a moment and see if you're holding any of that tension in your face. See if your worry lines are there. If they are, try to release that with the breath. Try to release tension, maybe even in the back body. We've got about another minute and a half here. Notice if you're holding tension in your toes, allow your feet just to be limp. And just a reminder to let your thoughts just soften into the background. Don't expect them just to go away. Just try to continue to find softness, release. So very slowly come out of frog pose. Just take a little turn to the side, especially if you're on a bolster or something. Move it to the side. You can either just lay down prone all the way or take a child's pose. If you're going to take child's pose, keep the knees a little bit closer together. So if we've already been in external rotation, I would keep the knees a little bit closer together or just lay down very gently on the stomach. And just feel the release in the hips. Maybe you feel some warmth there. Feel a little maybe tingling in the inner thighs. Okay, very slowly come back up. We're going to come into a deep squat. So once again, I want to give you a couple of modifications for this. So for me, my heels do not come down to the floor easily. So there's a couple different ways to fix that. Put your blanket underneath your heels so you can sit down on them. So you're not stuck with those heels up because we're going to be here 2 minutes. That's going to be a long time. So I really want you to relax those feet. The other way to do it is to use a block, and I'm going to turn back to face you so you can see this a little bit easier, is to use a block underneath you instead and sit on the block. This is really the version that I prefer for my hips. So once again, and if you don't need any props underneath you, that's fine. But once again, we want to make sure that we're relaxed and we're not holding anything. So I want you to hold tension in the Achilles tendons and the front of the ankles. And just either just take a nice light Anjali Mudra in front of you, or if you want to rest the hands on the floor, or even honestly, if you want to rest the elbows on your knees, that's good too. Really just trying to affect into the hip sockets instead. So we have just about another minute and a half here. So once again, just allow the hips just to sink down either towards the earth, onto your block. If you have a blanket underneath the heels, make sure those heels are really resting down on the blanket for you today. Once again, allow your eyes to float shut, to turn inward, or just take a soft gaze, maybe towards the fingertips if you're in Anjali Mudra. You can allow your senses just to be aware of everything around you. The sounds, the touch, our sight. And then very slowly release that squat. And just take a moment, either go back into child's pose or go back down into crunches to allow those hips to stretch back out. So we've had them in really deep flexion, so let's give them a little extension for a moment. So very slowly come up onto the knees. So I will already tell you, you're probably not going to like this next one. So you're going to work on the toes. So you're going to tuck your toes underneath you. So a couple of things. A lot of us are out walking and maybe we're walking way more than we're used to. So we really want to give some love to the soles of our feet. Or maybe you're not being able to do as much. We still want to make sure the soles of those feet are getting stretched out. So here's the deal. If you can sit back and up onto the feet, great. If you cannot, then you need to lift up and take pressure off of those toes. So make sure you have a version that you can stay in for a couple of minutes. This is going to be one of those really important places to use your breath and your patience. Once again, the fascia in the bottom of our feet tends to be very tight. We all wear shoes that are maybe not the best idea for our feet. This may be the longest 2 minutes you've ever had in your life. So just try to come back to the breath. Once again, and allow yourself, if you need to come out, you need to come out of the pose. If it's too much on the knees, as always, you can also use a blanket between the buttocks and the heels. That will also take a little pressure off, but that will also help take pressure off of the knees too. We still have a little over a minute. This might be a really good time to check those wrinkles in her forehead, the jawline, the lips. Come back to your breath. And allow everything to soften. About another 30 seconds. Notice if you're holding tension in the shoulders, anywhere that you can take your mind away from maybe the sensation in the feet. Almost there. We can make it. Very slowly come forward. Untuck your toes. You'll never be so happy to untuck your toes in your life probably. And just sit back into hero's pose. You need to bring a block underneath your hips for a moment, but just allow those feet just to relax. Who knew our feet could cause so much trauma to a certain degree? But really important, our feet are such our foundation for our regular yoga practice, for walking. It's so important that we really treat them well. Okay. So from here, we're going to come into half saddle pose. So once again, for me, I use a block underneath my hips. You're going to extend your right leg out in front of you. This leg, the foot can be underneath your thigh, or if you need to move it out a little bit, that's fine. There is really, the one thing about me, there's just really no exact right answer. So feel free to play around with this foot and leg placement. And then you're going to simply just walk your hands back. So some of you are going to be open enough where you can sit down on the floor more and come back, and maybe come back onto the elbows. So once again, make sure you're in the appropriate position for you. So we get a nice opening in the thighs. But also as you're leaning back, you get a little bit of extension through the chest too. Feel free to use those blankets, or if you have bolsters at home and you want to just bring your elbows onto blocks, you can do it this way, where you are not quite as high maybe, but you can rest your elbows on something. So this is a nice variation for having the blocks maybe underneath the hips. Once again, don't worry that don't try to lift up and out of the shoulders in your yin practice. Just come on and hang. If this version though is really not serving you because of maybe any knee issues, then you're going to come onto your stomach instead and pull the left foot into the back of the left thigh. Once again, we're trying to concentrate on the deep tissue of the quadricep muscle right now. Once again, this leg that's extended, just let it hang out there. It doesn't have to be the knee up to the ceiling or anything. Just let it loose. Once again, we just want to stay in that moderate sensation. We have about a minute 15 left. Come back to the softness, come back to feeling the release in the body and in the mind. Continue to release your expectations of what you feel your body should be able to do, or what your mind should be able to do. Just allow yourself to be and be accepting of where your body and mind are. If you're leaned back especially, very slowly press yourself up. Roll onto your right hip to help extend that left leg forward. If you have blocks behind you, move them to the side and just very gently roll yourself down to your mat. We'll just take a little brief Shavasana in between sides. I know you will all be very disappointed to have to come into Shavasana for a minute. Very slowly roll yourself to one side, bend your knees in a little bit, and press yourself up into a seated position. So this time the left leg is extended forward. Roll onto that left hip to bend the right leg back. Once again, don't worry if the foot is on the outside of the right hip. If it's more in alignment, that's fine too. Once again, important that you feel what you feel in your knees and your thighs. And then go ahead, if you want to lean back, start to lean back. Once again, if you can lay all the way down to the floor, lay all the way down to the floor. Just continue to allow yourself to be very moderate in your yin practice. Just coming to the edge where you can continue to keep soft breath, where you can continue to find stillness, where the rest of the body is not wanting to hold attention to distract the mind or take away from the part of the body that we are working on. We have a little over a minute left here on the side of saddle. Check in on your breath. Notice if maybe unconsciously you started to hold the breath. If you have, just connect with it again. Very slowly, if you are leaned back, very slowly come up. Roll onto your left hip. Gently extend the right leg forward. And once again, if you have something behind you, move it to the sides. And just lay all the way down. And just take a moment. Let the half saddle pose just resonate in your body. So we're going to come into Sleeping Swan. Before I come into Sleeping Swan, I want to just make sure that you have the variation that if you know Sleeping Swan is basically our pigeon pose. So if you know classical pigeon is very difficult for you, I want you to stay on your back. You're going to cross the right ankle over the left and pull the left leg in, especially since you're going to have a home practice. If there is a wall that you could put that left foot on, that's a really nice version. Or even if you put the left foot up on to a chair or a couch, that's really nice. Because once again, I don't want you to really work at pulling that left leg in if you're on your back. Once again, release the yin. We're not trying to use a lot of extra effort. If you know swan is okay for you, right leg forward, extend the left leg back. Once again, I am not concerned about you having exact perfect hips in Sleeping Swan. So if you're a little tilted to your right, I'm okay with that. We are going to be here for about 3 minutes. Once again, if you'd like to rest your head on the back of your hands, or maybe take a block if you're in Sleeping Swan, maybe put your arms on top of the block. But continue to feel the hips just heavy down to the earth if you are in Sleeping Swan. If you are on your back in another variation, continue to feel your spine just resting down into the earth. If possible, have that left leg supported so you're not working too hard. Allow the shoulders just to release around the rib cage in the back of the body if you're in Sleeping Swan. Once again, allow yourself to maybe yield into Sleeping Swan. If you need to moderate it and come out, make sure you're listening to your body. Remember our yamas of ahimsa, non-harming. That includes harming your own body by taking it too deep, too far. Here in Sleeping Swan, very slowly, walk your hands up. If you are on your back, I want you to stay there and just pull your knees into your chest and just rock back and forth. You have a couple of options. If you're in Sleeping Swan, if you want to come up and into a down dog, maybe taking sides, you can. Or if you want to take a child's pose, once again, we're going to take child's pose. Keep the knees a little bit more parallel since once again, we've already been turned out. Maybe keep those legs a little bit closer together instead for your rebound pose. So again, just allow your arms to relax. Don't worry about trying to reach them forward really far if you're in child's pose. If you're in down dog, allow yourself to soften your knees. Once again, you're really not warmed up to the point of trying to do down dog with straight legs unless you just happen to be naturally very open in the back of the legs. And then very slowly, if you're in down dog, gently bring your knees down to your mat. If you're in child's pose, just very slowly sit yourself up. Bring your left knee forward this time. If you're on your back, cross the left ankle over the right knee. Once again, if you can have that right leg supported somehow, that would be a really nice version to do on your back. If you have a couch there that you can throw the leg up on, or once again, maybe just allow it to push against a wall. And then if you're in a sleeping swan, maybe you can down to the elbows if you'd like, up onto a block with your arms to rest the head. Once again, if your right hip is lifted off of the floor, don't worry about it. Once again, different alignment in our yin practice and in our yang practice. Come back to the breath, make sure you have not started to hold the breath. Or maybe it's gone shallow. If it's done those things, it's probably a good indicator that maybe you're a little bit too deep. You're pushing too hard. Take a scan of the body, make sure the shoulders are just released, the toes, the fingers. Again, just allow the background noise of the mind to continue to be soft. If things come to the forefront, that's okay. Just come back to the breath, come back to the senses again, maybe to help that chatter go back into the background again. And once again, very slowly walk your hands back till you slowly press yourself up. Once again, if you're on your back, just stay on your back, bring the knees into your chest, or if you like, and if you're in sleeping swan, either child's pose or into downward facing dog. Once again, if you're doing down dog, just a really easy down dog. Once again, I'm going to take child's pose. And then very slowly, we come into a seated position. So coming into caterpillar. So once again, I know this looks like it's a forward fold, and it is, but we really actually are trying to affect the back muscles, the spinal erector group along the spine. So I don't mind if you sit up on a blanket or blocks, I'm good with that, but it really is more about finding actually a rounded back. I do want to remind you that if you have any pre-existing conditions that you should not be in a flexion. So especially if you would have like osteoporosis, you should not be in a rounded spine. Then you would take a flat back forward instead. So, but if you're okay with a rounded spine, legs could be in front of you. Anything if they can even be 6-8 inches apart. It really does not matter where those legs are. They can be turned out. Once again, we're actually really trying to get into the back muscles. So before you even round forward, something you will never hear me ever cue in a normal yoga class is kind of slump down actually. And go ahead and already kind of feel that downward force of gravity in the spine. Then all you're going to do is just very gently take that picture a little forward. Once again, if you have things around you, if you want to, you could bring a block and maybe a blanket, cross your hands or arms over each other and allow yourself just to rest the head. You can allow the head to hang in space if that feels good on the back of the neck also. Once again, our neck is part of our spine. Grab a couple of big pillows that you want to put underneath you. Then as you are in caterpillar, once again, notice if you're holding tension through the legs. Once again, just allow them to be natural. So if they roll open, they roll open. If they roll inwards, they roll inwards. But not trying to force them into any particular position. Come back to feeling the softness in the body. Finding release. So allow yourself to feel the calm of the stillness. Continue to allow the shoulders just to melt and relax. Don't force them anywhere, but just feel them heavy. Let them go where they naturally want to go without tension. Feel the toes soft. And very slowly sit all the way up. If you have props, go ahead and place them to the side. Go ahead and lay down on your back. One last pose before Shavasana. We're gonna come into Happy Baby pose. So bring the knees in, open the knees out to the sides, reach up. So once again, you're gonna be here for a while, so maybe just grab a hold of the ankles. Once again, if you're open in the inner thighs and in the hips and you wanna grab a hold of the soles of the feet, that's fine, but once again, we're not trying to go to our deepest Happy Baby that we have. So as you see, I'm grabbing onto my ankles. So even though you have a little bit of a gentle pull with the arms, maybe really try to feel the knees heavy down towards the earth instead, allowing gravity just to pull those legs down. We'll be here about another minute. Allow your feet to relax. Then very slowly allow the legs to come down. Take a moment if you need to put on a sweatshirt or socks. If you need to grab a blanket for support, take a moment to put on whatever you need before you come into Shavasana. As you come into Shavasana, continue to feel the same softness we had during the yin practice. Continue to allow the chatter of the mind just to be in the background. Allow your breath to be normal in the body, not forcing anything. And continue to feel the body just releasing down into the earth. Just allow yourself this time to rest in Shavasana. Slowly bring your awareness back into the body. Allow the breath to deepen very gently. And bring small movement into your fingers and into your toes. Turn the head from side to side. So as we'd like to take a stretch, please take a nice long stretch. And slowly bring one knee at a time into your chest. And roll over to one side. And then slowly continue to press yourself up into a seated position, keeping the eyes closed, the head nice and heavy. Bring your hands together at heart center. And just take a moment just to feel the energy of our practice settle, knowing that the energy of any of our practices how it supports us. So again, our well-being, our peace, our happiness, and also how that energy supports the well-being, the happiness and peace of others in our life. And then finally, know that that energy of our practice supports the well-being, peace, and happiness of all sentient beings. Once again, taking that moment to send that energy out to the sentient beings, to others in our life, and to ourselves. May you be happy, may you be healthy, and may you be at peace. Namaste.